Hello, everyone. This is another edition of Good Art, Bad Artist, where I, Shin Electromilk, invites artists that I like, artists from different fields and different backgrounds, to share us their processes, how they work, their hopes and dreams. Today's episode, our guest is a bit off the usual track. We usually talk to comic artists, illustrators, but today's guest is someone who, in my opinion, does projects instead of just one artwork that you will see on Instagram. He produces spaces, he curates. Back in like 2015, 2016 in LB, he's popular for his zine events, which he brought to Muntinlupa, to San Pedro. He produced these spaces where artists making non-conventional work can showcase what they do. And you're probably wondering, and I'm wondering about this as well, so let's ask him, what exactly does he do anyway? So we will ask him that in a while. Let's welcome to the show Mac Andre Arboleda. Hello, Mac.
Hello everyone. Maraming salamat Shin for inviting me. Um, fair yung obituary na binasa ni Shin just now. I'm a new person. I don't go by the name assholes anymore.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, and the question about and what does he do anyway? That's also what my parents are wondering. I think fair na I do a lot of projects. I sometimes even don't think of myself as like a creator or like an artist in that sense. I do like projects, definitely.
Ayun nga, I noticed you don't use the brand assholes anymore, which was more, I guess, like your college project or a self-perception that you might have grown up from. Is that how you see it?
There's definitely this feeling na parang, yeah, assholes era is over. Kasi it really started like late college, mga third year college. Pero I think most people did attach the name assholes to my webcomics before. So before nung parang meron pa akong drawing tablet, tapos nagda-drawing pa ako. I used to have this blog, assholes.com. It was really a blog project. Tapos just to get more viewers to my blog, I drew webcomics, and then eventually people knew me more for my webcomics than my blog, because that's how I got into, drawing, etc. But then, ayun, the pandemic happened. Zine Orgy stopped. All of my projects related to organizing these venues, they weren't possible anymore. Tapos, I recently transitioned into thinking more about how we engage digital spaces. So, during the pandemic, at parang months in, I became the founding president of the UP Internet Freedom Network. So, it's mostly centered on digital rights advocacy, thinking about our relationship with human rights in the online and offline. Tas dun na rin yung artistic practice ko, I guess, kasi ayun nga, mostly about how the internet and Mark Zuckerberg fucks up our life. And then the year after, I became the co-founder of Artists for Digital Rights Network. So it's bringing together artists. It started bringing together artists from the Philippines and Indonesia. And then right now we've expanded slowly to cover more ground in in the Asia Pacific, basically. I still want to make comics in the future, and still with the name Asus maybe. Pero right now, just with the work that I'm doing, and I wanted people to take me seriously, charot. Or like, marami kasi ako nami-meet recently na mga really, ano ba, like people I really admire in terms of like the work they do with critical internet studies and really amazing technologists I've met in the past few months. Parang nakita ko na gusto ko din yung name na Sick Internet. Parang my practice is about, according to my website, exploring the sickness of the internet through research and dialogue, art and text, organizing and publishing. So yeah, that's the reason why I left the name and switched to Sick Internet.
I would like to recommend the listeners to right now while you're listening, check out the website. It's kind of a portfolio that shows everything Mac has done, different projects, some of them for galleries and magazines and other websites. Some of them are seems like mostly for fun. I really need you guys to check it out because there's really not one way to describe what he does. But let's ask him anyway. So, Mac, what would you say are some core motives or recurring themes in the stuff that you do? And I get the internet part, and I see that it's kind of a commentary on how mishmashed and incoherent the internet is. But in your own point of view, like what what's the vein of the things that you prefer to tackle in your works?
Naisip ko na matatanong to kasi yun nga parang I think these questions also necessitate for me to self-reflect. But it's difficult because I feel like often I don't really reflect on my work and parang sit down and like here's what I'm doing. I feel like my process or journey or whatever word you want to use as a creator, as a producer or whatever is very cerebral, very neurotic. Parang a lot of my motivations come from interests and obsessions, urgent concerns. Ayun nga, nung nagka-pandemic, it was really about everything being online. Tapos, ever since naman, interest ko na yung internet studies. That's also the reason why I took up my master's na communication arts and information technology yung fields of interest. And so, ayun, parang when I just started really being into more digital spaces, that's when I decided to na ganun yung art practice ko for that present moment. Pero syempre nung 2015, those times, I was avoiding my thesis. Not that it's an important part of the story. Pero yeah, that was also around the time that I saw Magpie's Press's work for the first time. It was in Wisik. And then I saw that they were making these zines na parang, like self-published work. And malalaman mo naman when you see it na parang, holy shit, like, I can do this too. That's exactly the thought that came into my mind when I saw their work. But of course, sobrang advanced na ng Magpies that time. The same year was when we organized Zine Orgy, the first Zine Orgy together. Kasi I was thinking about how there weren't spaces just in UPLB. See, this is UPLB specific. There weren't spaces na permanent for people to do this kasi it was so cool. Like, bakit walang, spaces like this? I mean, libraries are a thing, bookshops are a thing. Bakit kailangan event space? So that was also the time that we first did Zine Orgy. To get to the question, parang it's always just a thought that comes as an obsession or as an urgent concern na parang, huy, kailangan may ganitong event or huy, kailangan may ganitong thing tayong pinag-iisipan or pinag-uusapan. So, one would say na these are very selfish in the sense na like you're all just following, my current obsession that time. But yeah, I feel like it's also wonderful how people make it happen. They make these urgent concerns easy to respond to. They make these collaborations happen. Ayun, it's really about those concerns and the people that make it possible. Kaya nagiging possible din yung mga projects that I end up pursuing.
Xenorgy is, if I may compare, it's like BLTX in QC UP Diliman scene from Chingby Cruz and Adam David, where it's an event, it's one night only every end of semester. That's kind of the concept. And it's like writers who self-publish their work, photographers, artists, people making comics in LB, stickers, other fun paraphernalia. It's kind of an outlet for the community to just to show what they have done, to maybe to start new dialogues. Later on, Zine Orgy also had performance artists, may open mic then, may it's just fucking cool. And just to add to what you said about your describing your art, what I observed is that there's always a fuck you, fuck the system tone to it. The way you draw, it's like parang fuck anatomy, fuck proportions. And even the way you design posters, the way you choose colors in your work, even your short film, there's always to me a sense of giving, and not in a corny edge lord way, but there's always a sense of giving a middle finger to what had been established before. Is that deliberate for you, or does that just happen na oh nga no, I hate the ano pala, the usual systematic organizations of aesthetic, even not even government lang.
Siguro, I wanted to respond dun sa parang aesthetic. I feel like it's very surprising to me to hear what you just said na parang very different. I guess kasi when in drawing and even in films, I'm a very honestly super duper lazy. Like the reason why I draw like that. No, I wish I had the parang mysterious answer, but like I'm really just insanely lazy. Tapos before I was working with really poor tools, like sobrang pangit ng laptop ko before. And even just aspiring to be really a detailed like illustrator, parang mahirap siya, and I'm a Taurus, so I'm very impatient and stubborn.
Mm.
So it's difficult. But in terms of design, I feel like mas may conscious or deliberate approach ako dun because I've during my college years I was always this parang publicity head ng mga
Mm.
activities, organizations. And you end up usually knowing the trends ganyan, parang if you know about kunwari the era of Bebas New, ganyan,
Mhm.
parang everyone's using Bebas, tas parang no, I don't want to use this anymore. So parang I mean, it could probably still be laziness, pero sort of like going outside of that aesthetic just to sort of explore and yeah.
The first Zine Orgy poster I remember was yung picture ng Freedom Park in UPLB. Tapos the people are yung GTA style, AutoCAD style, and they look so stupid. So yung mga ganong stuff na, but yeah, I didn't mean it to say na it's always rebelliously ugly, but ayun nga, I feel like you always think of how to divert. Parang you don't just design kung ano lang yung, let's say, pleasing or whatever. It's like when somebody cooks. Like, oh, I'll cook tinola. Oh, but you know what? Let's put some Tabasco on it. Or, parang, oh, I'm gonna make a hot dog, but I will fry them on Red Bull. Parang ganun yung nai-imagine ko with your thinking about these things.
I have no response, honestly.
I don't know what I'm saying, honestly. Kind of your name now is Sick Internet from Assholes. And I think for someone who has known you like since your early days with a asshole sticker na nakagana, parang it really feels like an elevation, na parang it has the same core values, but maybe ngayon mas my organization now with what you actually want to say and do. Do you feel that way?
I love the phrase core values. Parang
Parang school, no? Mission,
I,
vision.
I feel like I agree naman. Parang it's still I mean the name Sick Internet. It's not like it sounds very alam mo yun, parang mid-career 30s na parang I'm all about being professional now. Even the I loved how you mentioned yung parang logo ko before, parang I hate parang it came from the energy of like ano ba, what's the word for it? Parang self-hate or like,
Mm.
ano ba yung word yung parang when you're trying to make fun of yourself, parang ganun.
Self-deprecating?
Oh, self-deprecating, yeah, parang ganun. But now it's more of like I hate the internet from I hate parang I'm trash yung ano ko eh, like brand tag before, but now
Uh-huh.
like well, I hate the internet, I hate Mark Zuckerberg. What
Mm.
can we do to like engage these things and think more, imagine better I don't know, networks or spaces.
Speaking of calling yourself trash, well, I just want to know how you feel about this now when you see it. Does it trigger you? Guys, I'm showing him like I think this is his first zine called Mom Dad I'm Trash, and it's very magazine style, but all the content are in a way kind of captures the 70s punk spirit na oh everything actually sucks. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, Mac. But I mean from the cover itself, and I remember I got this from 20 pesos kasi sabi mo pangit yung printing niya sa best print. Los Baños, Laguna. Do you cringe or do you get where this past self is coming from?
Yeah, I'm definitely not reprinting that anymore. That's the first response that
Let's
I'm
start with that.
pero I mean I accept my past work. It's not like it feels wrong din to me to not honor the work that I've done before kasi it feels authentic naman to that time. I was probably 19 or 20 that time or maybe 20. I honestly don't know. Wala na akong sense of time right now.
Mm-hmm.
Pero yeah, and I loved it because it was actually my first zine was still a collaboration with friends.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just me, it was assholes and friends. So
Yeah.
it also came from a particular time when because I'm also a part of like a gazillion orgs in UPLB. So I was also part of the Graphic Literature Guild. They
Mm-hmm.
organized LBCon. I was one of the heads before. There was a time when yung constraints kumbaga ng organizations for you to they sometimes expect you to make really like one shot comics na talagang comics lang ganyan. During that time, I was also very active in my blog. And to me, it felt like that project was sort of materializing what I was doing during that time, which was a little bit of comics, a little bit of like blogging, a little bit of like meeting and asking friends what they're doing, what they're producing, and then making that into one single project. And that was the time that I wasn't doing my thesis. So maybe kaya ganun yung ano, kaya ganun yung title. So yeah, I mean, I respect the old me, but like I'm not reprinting that shit anymore.
And I talked earlier na I always get this sense of a raised middle finger in your work. I know that's a tacky expression. There's always that parang fuck what you know or like may zine ka na may zine ang Magpies na it's Noah's Ark basically and the cover is a Genesis quote and when you start reading the zine it's actually this pictures of people with animal face masks. It's not a face mask. What do you call that? Yung
I just call it Korean face mask.
oh, okay, yes. The skincare mask with animal print. And then you also have, what's the title of your Duterte zine na photo album siya, na photoshopped si Duterte in family photo albums?
Oh, that was with Magpies. It's called Para sa Alaala ng Yumaon Nating Ama.
Yeah. So stop. I hope the listeners kind of get the concept that magpies and asshole and sorry that magpies and Mac touches on. No, do you always intentionally? How do we make it weird? How do we make it like the Noah's Ark thing? You decided na the cover is this huge poster-sized Genesis quote that's almost incomprehensible at first look or yung flashcards zine na medyo inconvenient siya physically like Is there always an intent for you to make it weird or to make it unusual?
What comes to mind kapag inaalala ko yung mga works ng Magpies, what has always excited me dun sa work namin is we always get to make something that's funny and
Mm.
something that explores form. I think for me, yun yung personal stake ko, what I love the most about working with Magpies. We always explore the form. So it was a photo album. Sa flashcards, it was a flashcard.
May dyaryo, activity book.
Diaryo kami. Meron kaming academic conference of abstracts na zine.
Is that, tas meron pa kayo yung hardbound black book na How to Make Satan Happy? Tama ba yung title?
Proud.
How to Make Satan Proud, which is so fucking funny, and like, it's such a, I feel bad for anyone who doesn't have it. So sorry, tell me more about the conceptualizations. Do you make it weird, or is it parang sensible lang na of course ito dapat yung packaging niya?
Again, I can't speak on behalf of all of Magpies members, pero we always start with maybe the thinking that we need to respond dun sa current contexts nung panahon na yon. So, for example, nung Los Baños, it was around the first few years of the Duterte administration, and we wanted to sort of think about how media will come into play dun sa context. It was 2021. It was a fictional newspaper made in 2017, but it was supposedly published in 2021. So for us, speculating about the future was one way to respond to the current context. And using a zine, I suppose yung naisip nga namin na interesting form ay yung tabloid. And then for other zines, again, it was about, responding to the context that we had. Dun sa 666, obviously, we wanted to make a zine that that also fit dun sa theme ng Zine Orgy 666. But the theme was also very much parang going against, not just conventions, pero institutions that try to decide what's good or bad, what's moral and what's immoral. And that's sort of the motivation that we had for making, how to make Satan proud. Satan not necessarily being, like the
Mm.
evil person that we paint him to be, pero yung mga dinidemonize sa society like queer people,
Mm.
the indigenous people, stuff like that. Parang that's sort of the direction that we went to. And then for the others, again, it was still very much about the current context. Yung academic abstracts namin na zine, it was about, the climate crisis. We had a few parang criticism dun about how, the environmental crisis that we had is still very much connected to the political crisis that we're going through. Ayun, it's just really, and it's still fun. Parang I think yun yung pinaka gusto kong ma-express na it was both for us to respond to these contexts, but also still have fun and still be able to critically engage nga yung mga, I guess, conventions and institutions that we've come to know.
I wrote this while you were talking, na parang when it comes to your zines, the form informs as well. Oh, cool ko sa part na yan. Di ba na parang the form is informative. What I love about Magpies, of course, super fucking creative people. Shout out to Shauna, Pauline, the ones na naabutan ko. Si Rap, medyo hindi na kami nagsabay ng time. But like, I had a prof in MA, favorite niyang sabihin sa lahat ng nangyayari, sa lahat ng project, sa lahat ng essay, was how much thought was put into this. That's what I love about Magpies, na every part of it is purposeful in a way, and may humor lagi siya. I think that's the fucking important part, na even if you're like a DDS or whatever, if you see Los Baños, the fictional newspaper, you're gonna fucking laugh. So Mac, I observed na you have projects like The Face of a Marcos Apologist. You produce spaces and, in a way, experiences, and you make short films as well. Why do you prefer to operate that way? Na hindi lang siya one thing, it's more like either you're there, na you experience it, or wala siya talaga. Hindi siya super tangible or palpable na nasa kahon na ito yung ginawa kong project. Why is that your preference?
What comes to mind when you ask that? It's that I'm simply not very interested in maybe, I mean, I might contradict myself in the future, but maybe
Hmm.
art objects. Like I'm not interested that much in producing like objects or images, yun yan. Maybe the process then it's about, for me, yun nga, parang it's like a neurotic process where I'm more concerned about the ideas that I'm chasing. I'm maybe studying them. I'm not, parang minsan nahuhuli for me yung parang, okay, what's the artwork that I want to do? Sometimes I end up realizing that what I end up wanting to do is pushing my friends to be able to do the stuff that they want to do. Sometimes it's about producing opportunities for people that I like to come together. Sometimes it's about making possible spaces for people to talk about certain topics that I'm interested in. Katulad ng Artists for Digital Rights Network. I mean, it could have been easy for me to just go on and like produce artworks related to, you know, digital rights
Mm-mm.
issues or whatever. But to be honest, I was more interested in getting or maybe scamming more people to care about these issues. And for me, mas malakas yung feeling na yun na parang, yun nga, parang I want you guys to also know and read about and engage, you know, the topics that I've been looking into. And these topics are usually stuff that I'm also frustrated in, or parang I feel like I have no one to talk to maybe. Going back to zines na lang din na, you know, zines are really truly for everyone. I mean,
Mm.
so easy to do. You don't even need so much of a guide. Parang may feeling nga din minsan na it would defeat the purpose if there was a guide. But
Mhm,
yun nga, I
mhm.
sincerely believe that it was something that everyone could do, given din na sobrang daming art collectives and individuals who were producing work sa community. So ayun, parang always believing that people can also have that room and opportunity. Kasi sometimes then I feel like people don't believe that they do have these spaces or these potentials. Maybe because we're too busy with school, or we're not taught to think outside of the box maybe. And so feeling ko that's also what these spaces allow us to do.
As an artist, or whatever you want to call yourself, what do you care for in terms of creativity and production, and what do you not give a shit about?
For me, I mean, recently again, I've been working on studying more and organizing people towards digital rights advocacy. So recently, my project ako called Toolkits for Counterparts. I'm working with UK-based artist April Lin. Tapos it's sort of bringing together UK artists, 3 UK artists and 3 Filipino artists to work on toolkits that respond to digital spaces and context that we have right now. Tapos 3 of the people that I selected sa Philippines were people I haven't worked with, and
What do they do?
yung some of them, yung isa animation and net art, yung isa they build communities surrounding technology in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, and then the other artist was parang music and sound. So I suppose sometimes ano rin, parang I always like learning from people. I'm always really still very much hung up on like collaboration. Parang what more than me giving them the space to be able to do this work. Parang it's always also about how can I learn from this person. I suppose to give the answer that I'm suspecting you want to hear is that I think I'm not very interested in being an artist. or maybe I'm not interested in being an artist lang, maybe.
Mm.
Because I feel like I cover a lot of disciplines na hindi necessarily falls under art. So for example, right now, yun nga, with my foiled attempt to thrive in grad school, parang I also wanted to explore more academic directions with my work, try research or whatever. I've also been really interested in like organizing. So yun nga naging head ako ng UP Internet Freedom Network. I'm always interested in the different roles that I could play, within capital S society.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like the role as an artist, um, what's good about it, at least I feel, is you have more flexibility. I mean, network building could also be art making, in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, gets.
And so feeling ko, ayun, and I want to go back to the time that I said that I was selfish. Maybe it's because yun nga, I think my brain is really, really, ano ba, impulsive, compulsive, like obsessed. And I can't usually parang stay in that headspace where I'm like, okay, I'm an artist right now. I need to create.
Gets.
Parang at the next moment or in the next phase, parang I'm interested in maybe pursuing, I don't know, like international relations or whatever.
Mm.
Or like,
Kasi nga, as per my observation, you're really activity and project based. You're more about what you're doing, I guess, than what you think you are in a good way. Parang ganun. And yeah, you give the answer I want to hear. So thank you for that. The second to the last segment is called Recommend Me Shit, where you just recommend me or to our listeners any activity, food, TV show, prayer, philosophical belief, Republic Act that you want us to try or you want us to experience, whatever.
I mean, ano ba? I've also been watching this, ayun, I mentioned this earlier, pero hindi pala recorded. I'm watching this Netflix series called Osan's Love. So it's a really funny Japanese comedy series.
I'm gonna look for them.
And I'm really enjoying it kasi, wala, it's just funny. And I honestly wish I could produce a work like that, something na funny, but also just really raw with like energy. Um, Someday, gusto ko maging film producer ng funny shit. Recently I came across this work that I really liked by Nathalie Dagmang. It's called Mayflower. It's a 47-minute video work. Maybe it's a performance. I'm not going to describe it in my own words. Pero it's part of a kamustahan art project and online space by Nathalie Dagmang. I think it was supported by British Council. Tapos they performed I forgot, nakalimutan ko yung tawag sa ano na to, sa sa event na to, pero basta something about flowers. Tapos they
Santa
connected,
Cruzan ang
oh, Santa Cruzan nata, sorry. Um Ayun, they connected migrant workers working internationally.
It's 10 o'clock.
Sorry, that's my alarm.
okay.
Tapos ayun, nag-Santa Cruzan sila via Zoom. Tapos it's honestly one of the most moving art projects that I came across recently.
Okay, Mac. Final question. What for you makes a good art? And what kind of person for you is a bad artist?
I mean, not to be a philo student right now, pero like everyone has different um
Yeah.
meanings associated with art, with the word artist, with maybe the phrase bad artist, good art. Pero what does come to mind when you ask me that question is that I think everyone is a bad artist. Because I feel like, I mean, we always talk about this not just in Magpies pero just in general, parang with people like connect with, art, especially in this particular context. What kind of art making is necessary in this context. Parang, is it enough to do this or that? And I think at the end of the day, we have to realize na, I think all artists have sort of that both role, responsibility, and that complicity. Agad na parang whenever we do the things that we do, personal is political or whatever kids say nowadays. It's always a choice, and it's always parang whether we like it or not, a response to what's happening now. And kaya mahalaga din for me personally, and I suppose for the people that I've worked with, to yun nga, parang think about what kind of art do we see that needs to be seen or engaged, or what kind of art making is necessary now. Enough ba yung parang mag-post ng political art? Enough ba yung parang mag-tweet ng parang, hashtag whatever? And so I feel like, I mean, that's really honestly the answer that I have, is that I think everyone's a bad artist. But of
Good
course,
art. Walang good art for you. Fuck
but
everyone.
I think, I mean, to be naman, parang ang hirap naman na sabihin na there's no such thing as good art. I feel like it erases, the stuff that really amazing people are doing. But I feel like this also comes from my experience with Magpies. I think good art is also good criticism. I suppose yun rin yung parang phrase or statement that I, not consciously, pero I try to embody with the work that I do. Yun nga, what kind of art making or whatever cultural work is necessary sa panahon ngayon. And it should be something that's good criticism. And usually good criticism is something that not everybody expects. It's not something that everybody necessarily agrees with. I think sometimes the best criticism is something na nakagulat, something na hindi madaling pag-usapan maybe, hindi madaling pag-agrihan. And it's also the most exciting art for me, at least.
Ano yung title ng post sa Magpie's Tumblr dati na yung chat nyo about the artist having to explain or not explain himself? May pangalan yun yung chat nyo siya.
Yes, I think, hindi ko rin sure kung kaya kong maalala, pero the title is The Artists Don't Own You Any Explanation.
Yeah, I think so. Because it's from a Facebook comment, parang ganon. The artists don't own you, an explanation. You guys please Google that after this. I fucking loved it, reading that. Like, John Berger ways of seeing Ken kill himself. It's so much better. No, but I fucking love it. I really enjoyed reading that.